What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for MLB Monday, August 9th.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to go over my top DFS picks for today's MLB slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have a 4-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the pitcher position. If you want to pay up for pitcher, I like Freddie Peralta, pitching against a low salary batting team, the Chicago Cubs. Freddie Peralta is only giving up a .580 OPS versus righties, and he's facing 5 righties tonight. And one of the reasons I like this pick, although it's not a huge sample size, the Cubs have only hit 5 of his last 32 pitches. That's a 156 batting average. He's 10,200 FanDuel salary. He's 300 more on DraftKings. Projected at 31.8 fantasy points here tonight. He has an ERA of 2.21. His record is 8-3 on the season, pitching an average of 83 pitches per game, averaging 37 fantasy points per game. He scored 43, 43, and 27 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Freddie Peralta here versus the Chicago Cubs. Now, if you want to pay down at pitcher and save some salary for those bats, take a look at Jameson Taillon with a 3% pitching advantage over a low salary batting team, the Kansas City Royals. Jameson Taillon, he pitches his best ball versus righty batters, giving up a .695 OPS versus righties. He's facing 5 righties here tonight. And again, this isn't the biggest sample size, but it's a great start. The Royals have only hit 5 of his last 39 pitches. That's a 128 batting average. He's only 8,100 FanDuel salary and 300 less on DraftKings. Projected at 24.1 fantasy points here tonight. He's got an ERA of 4.04. Record is 7-4 on the season. Pitching an average of 84 pitches per game, averaging 27 fantasy points per game, but he's been on fire, scoring 47, 38, and 40 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Jameson Taillon here versus the Kansas City Royals. Okay, let's take a look at the catcher first base position. Here's a value play for you. I like Andrew Vaughn with a 24% batting advantage over the low salary pitcher, Beau Burrows. Andrew Vaughn, he's batting a .670 OPS versus righties. And Beau Burrows, he pitches pretty bad versus righties, 58% worse to righties as he does lefties, giving up a 1.367 OPS versus righties. Now, there's no at-bats versus Burrows yet, but I like this pick because Andrew Vaughn is only 2,600 FanDuel salary. He's 500 more on DraftKings, projected at 9.4 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 9 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 32, 10, and 3 fantasy points in the last 3 games. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 9.5 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So I like Andrew Vaughn as a value play here versus Beau Burrows. I also like Omar Narvaez with a 54% batting advantage over a low-salary pitcher, Alec Mills. Omar Narvaez, he bats 24% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .704 OPS versus righties. And Alec Mills, he throws 30% worse to lefties as he does righties, giving up a .871 OPS versus lefties. Now, Omar is 1-for-1 versus Mills with a 2 OPS, and he's 3,100 FanDuel salary, 700 more on DraftKings, projected at 12.2 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 9 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 22, 0, and 18 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Omar Narvaez here versus Alec Mills. I also like Eric Hosmer with a 47% batting advantage over Zach Thomas. Eric Hosmer is batting 21% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .846 OPS versus righties. And Zach Thompson, he pitches his worst ball versus lefty batters, 26% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .765 OPS versus lefties. Eric Hosmer is 1-for-2 with a 1 OPS versus Thompson. He's 3,200 FanDuel salary and only 600 more on DraftKings. Projected at 10.1 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 8 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 3, 22, and 0 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Eric Hosmer here versus Zach Thompson. Okay, let's take a look at the second base position. I like Cesar Hernandez with a 43% batting advantage over that low salary pitcher, Beau Burrows. Cesar Hernandez is batting a .746 OPS versus righties, and Beau Burrows, he pitches his worst ball by far to switch hitters, 45% worse than his other pitches, giving up a 1.756 OPS versus switch hitters. Now, Cesar Hernandez is 0-for-1 versus Burrows, and he's 3,100 FanDuel salary and 1,100 more on DraftKings. Projected at 9.8 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 0, 25, and 28 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Cesar Hernandez here versus Beau Burrows.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Now, I also like Adam Frazier with a 34% batting advantage over Zach Thompson. Adam Frazier bats 7% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .740 OPS versus righties. And Zach Thompson, he throws his worst ball versus lefty batters, 26% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .765 OPS versus lefties. Adam Frazier is 2,800 FanDuel salary. He's 700 more on DraftKings, projected at 9.8 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 15, 12, and 12 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Adam Frazier here versus Zach Thomas. Okay, let's take a look at the third base position. I like Yohan Moncada with a 50% batting advantage over that low salary pitcher, Beau Burrows. Yohan Moncada, he's batting 5% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .743 OPS versus righties, and we know Beau Burrows throws his worst ball versus switch hitters, giving up a 1.756 OPS versus switch hitters. Now, there's no at-bats versus Burrows yet, and Yohan Moncada is 2,800 FanDuel salary. He's 2,100 more on DraftKings, so I love that FanDuel price. Projected at 9 fantasy points here tonight. He's averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 12, 13, and 15 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So I like Yoan Moncada here versus Beau Burrows. Okay, who do we have at the shortstop position? There wasn't much that I liked at this position, so I'm just going to go with a stud pick, but actually his salary is reasonable on FanDuel. I like Tim Anderson with a 23% batting advantage over that low salary pitcher, Beau Burrows. So you can see, guys, that I think it's a great idea to stack these bats versus Beau Burrows. Almost the whole Chicago White Sox team are in good spots here versus Beau Burrows. So Tim Anderson, he's batting a .724 OPS versus righties, and Beau Burrows is giving up a 1.367 OPS versus righties. Tim Anderson is 1-for-1 with a 2 OPS versus Burrows, and he's only $3,400 FanDuel salary. He's $2,700 more on DraftKings, so I love that FanDuel price. Projected at 10.9 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 31, 0, and 7 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Tim Anderson here versus Beau Burrows. Okay, moving on to the outfield position. Now I know I've given you a ton of players already from the Chicago White Sox, but I'm just going to throw this last one in. It's Eloy Jimenez with a 113% batting advantage over that low salary pitcher, Beau Burrows. Eloy Jimenez, he's batting 54% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .979 OPS versus righties, and Beau Burrows is giving up a 1.367 OPS versus righties. Now, Eloy Jimenez is 0-for-1 versus Burrows. He's $3,100 FanDuel salary, $1,300 more on DraftKings, projected at 10.9 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 13 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 54, 12, and 6 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I love this Chicago White Sox stack. So I also like Eloy Jimenez here versus Beau Burrows. Now here's a stud pick for you. I like Giancarlo Stanton with a 13% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Carlos Hernandez. Giancarlo Stanton is batting 14% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .883 OPS versus righties, and Carlos Hernandez is giving up a .791 OPS versus righties. Now Stanton is 0-for-1 versus Hernandez, and he's $3,900 FanDuel salary, and he's only $600 more on DraftKings. So I like that price on both sites. He's projected at 11.3 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 6, 9, and 13 fantasy points in his last 3 games. And I like this pick because Vegas thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game. 10 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So I like Giancarlo Stanton here versus Carlos Hernandez. Okay, I'll throw in one more pick here. I just caught this. His price looks pretty low on FanDuel. I like Christian Yelich with a 14% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Alec Mills. Christian Yelich is batting a .717 OPS versus righties, and Alec Mills throws 30% worse to lefties as he does righties, giving up a .871 OPS versus lefties. Now, Christian Yelich is 1-for-6 versus Mills, but that one hit is for a home run. So he's only $2,900 FanDuel salary. He's $2,000 more on DraftKings, but I love that FanDuel price. Projected at 16.2 fantasy points here tonight. He's averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 6, 0, and 0 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So I like Christian Yelich, especially on FanDuel, here versus Alec Mills.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.